Asalachaim, everyone, and the Eibush is alle benchen with brachas, malufos, adiros. I'm not the last speaker, but Rabbi Lazar, I think he was only able to come on a little bit later. So when I'm going over time, please, whoever it is, let me know. I'm not planning to, but let's see how it's going to go. Chaim lebrach. Anyways, today's Farbrengen is connected to two very auspicious days coming up right around the corner. Of course, it's the Rebbe's brother's Yortzeit. It's tonight, but it's connected to the days in terms of Yom Tovim for the Jewish people. Two mini Yom Tovim, but the Rebbe made them ginormous. Pesach Sheni, which is going to be on Friday, and then Lag B'Omer, which is coming up next week, Monday night, Tuesday, the 14th of Iyar and the 18th of Iyar. So Pesach Sheni is a mini Yom Tov. What's Pesach Sheni? It's a mini to eat matzah Pesach Sheni. We don't say Tachna. That's the celebration. And in Chassidus, what do we have in Chassidus in terms of the Pesach Sheni? There's a word from the Friediger Rebbe. There's nothing verfallen. There's nothing that is verfallen. Nothing is lost. And there's a minor from the Tzemach Tzedek, Mahavening Pesach Sheni. I didn't learn all of Chassidus. I can't tell you that's the only thing that's written on Pesach Sheni, but as far as I am aware, that's about it we have on Pesach Sheni up to the Rebbe. The Rebbe came and the Rebbe turned Pesach Sheni into an entire Masechta. Masechta is Pesach Sheni. Farbrengens and talks and in Yonim of Pesach Sheni. Regarding Lag B'Omer, okay, it's really a little different because Lag B'Omer is a big Yom Tov commemorated around the world with a lot of fanfare. B'chol Tfutzos Yisrael everywhere, and especially in Eretz Yisrael, where it's Oila al Kulana, Iran, and so on and so forth. And we're still hoping that this year's Lag B'Omer will far, far exceed every Lag B'Omer ever. The Bias Mashiach Tzedkenu. So this is it's a special Yom Tov. Regarding our Rebbe, the Rebbe, I wasn't by the Rebbe Lag B'Omer. I was never there. I don't remember as a kid. I grew up in Borough Park. I don't remember ever going to Lag B'Omer parade. My parents ever taking me. So I wasn't there Lag B'Omer. But I have someone, a good friend of mine, Rabbi Fish. He's always telling me Lag B'Omer, wow, and he's always like, there's no such thing. Lag B'Omer, the Rebbe is like, as we say Friday night. His face was radiated, the Rebbe's face radiated on Lag B'Omer like no other day. And the day he says, even in a sense, even for surpassing even some Torah, there's such a radiance and the fact that the Rebbe was Melech Besada. I wasn't there physically, but I watched the videos. Melech Besada, the Rebbe's accessibility and we all know the moifsim that went on Lag B'Omer regarding children and so on and so forth. The Rebbe was in a state of such simcha. So we see that Lag B'Omer is a ginormous day. It's beyond. So I'd like to discuss these 2 days as they relate to the year 5780, to 2020, to the year that we're in now, to our situation. We're all sitting at home. We're Farbrengen on a Zoom Farbrengen. What does this mean to us? This year is special. Manishtana. We say regarding Pesach, past Manishtana. Manishtana, Hashana Hazois. Pesach Sheni of this year that you should be special. What's the message? There's nothing new, but how the old message applies in a unique and special way to this year, and in a sense more than other times. So, regarding the Rebbe's excitement about Pesach Sheni, one can say that the Rebbe sees our generation in general as a Pesach Sheni generation, as a generation that's here to make up for all what was lacking. Like in a sense similar to Shevet Dan. Shevet Dan was the last Shevet to travel, Machne Dan, with the other two Shvatim that belonged to Machne Dan, and they were called Ma'asef L'chol HaMachnos. They were gathering all the camps, as just in case anybody dropped something. It wasn't farfallen, it wasn't lost. You waited to the next encampment, and you would go to the Dun camp, and you would say, I lost something. And one of the Dunites, or whoever was together, I think Naftali, maybe an Usher, the other two Shvatim that together with Dun, hopefully someone found it. They picked up whatever was dropped. Our generation being the Ma'asif L'chol HaMachnos, being the last from all the generations. As the Rebbe referred to our generations, Doir Achron Shel Golus, the last generation of the Golus, and Doir Rishon Shel Geula, the first generation to the Geula, which is an interesting characterization, in addition to the fact that the Rebbe insisted that our generation is both. We shouldn't think that the Golus is going to come to a very slow end. That's what's choisir, Chas v'shalom, there can be a generation, 2 generations that can kind of wither out as the end of Golus, and then we'll start with the new generation. The Rebbe insisted it's the same generation. The same generation. How exactly characterize the generation? I'll leave it to the bigger maskil and those who will tell you exactly. But the generation is this Otot. The Rebbe's generation is a generation, the last generation of exile, and Doir Rishon of the Geula, the first generation of the Geula. Now it's interesting that there was such an emphasis on Doir Achron Shel Begolus, because I would think when we think about the generation going out of Mitzrayim, so it's not so much the fact that they were the last generation. I know they experienced Koishi Hashiba. They experienced the worst of the worst. The last Gezeda that came, they shouldn't give them Teva and so on. We feel our heart goes out for them. But that's not what we think of. We're thinking of these are the people that witnessed the 10 Makkahs. These are the people that said Zeh Keli Ve'Yanveyu when they pointed with their fingers. These are the people who received the Torah. These are the Dara Midbar. These are the we emphasize and we experience, or we admire and we're envious, so to speak, them being the Rishon of the Geula and not so much the Achron of the Golus. But the Rebbe did insist that we are the last generation of Golus as well. And I think the idea of it is that completing the Golus is unbelievable, because Golus is the avodah in Golus is what makes everything happen. Everything is tolu b'maseinu v'avodeseinu kol zman meshech hagolus. We can't even fathom, we can't even begin to imagine the sacrifice, the blood, the tears, the avodah, all the iskafia, and all the ishapcha, and all the mesiras nefesh, and everything and all the scholarly work, and all the dedication to mitzvahs, and all the ava v'yira, and everything, the sum totality of the Jewish people and the thousands of years of toil and labor and exertion through this impassable exile. And yet, we're the ones who have to complete it. And complete it means if there's anything missing in the Avodah, if there's anything that was lacking, we can make it up. But it's not only that we're making up what's missing. When we talk about completing something, shleimus means to be mashlim. Mashlim means to beautify, to complete it. So in other words, it's to upgrade everything, to upgrade all of our work of our grandparents, our parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, bobbies and zadis and elkazadis and all the tzaddikim and all the generations from the days of Abaya and Reuven and Rabbi Akiva, and it's all after the destruction. It's all during the time of Golus. And we, little peepsqueaks, little shmendricks like us, are told that we're the ones who will complete and not only make up for anything that's missing, but mashlim everything for all the generations. So it's a big deal to be the last generation of Golus. Now, what does it take to be able to do that? Now, how do we have that? So, like the Rebbe said when the Rebbe became the Rebbe, the fact that we're Doir Hashvi is not something that we've chosen. It's something that we've been selected for. Maybe it's only the Eibishter knows the greatness of our souls, the true greatness of our neshamas. I mean, the Rebbe would always tell us that we're the same generation of the went out of Mitzrayim. So even though the koiches geluyim and revealed koiches, we might be incomparably lower than our ancestors, but the Pnimius and Etzem, where must be very powerful souls. But more than all of that is that we have the greatest leader that any generation ever had. And our Rebbe, our leader, picks us up on giant shoulders, and we get lifted up to the highest of places. And that itself gives us koiches adirim, gives us koiches that are beyond, to complete everything, mamish everything from all the generations. And that's the meaning that we are Pesach Sheni Yid. We're the Yidden that complete it. That we're the ones that bring everything back, everything that's lost. Now, what's the tnuah of Pesach Sheni? Pesach Sheni is that there's nothing that's lost, but there is a tnuah in the avodah of Pesach Sheni. There is a certain energy, there's a certain character that characterizes the avodah of Pesach Sheni. So the Rebbe is always explaining in the Maimarim, the Chassidus of Pesach Sheni, that the characteristic of Pesach Sheni is the avoid of Baal Tshuva. The idea of Nishtokan Farfallen is a person has a deep, aching pain in their soul of a missed opportunity. We have deep frustrations when we're waking up in a midlife crisis and we're looking back and we feel like we've wasted our time. We could have amounted to so much more. We could have accomplished so much more. We could have done so much better. And here I feel like such a loser. I feel so empty. I feel so lacking. And so the idea that when we come tell a year that there's not such a thing that you can't repair and you can't set everything right, to be able to do that, that's a tenu of tshuva. The person has a deep sense of remorse. And what's tshuva? Tshuva taps into a complete different energy. Tshuva taps into the energy of Lamaila Mizman HaMakim, Lamaila Menishtalshalos. Tshuva comes from, as the Rebbe told us, from the deepest power, the deepest essence of the Yid's Neshama. The part of you where you're not a nivra, creation is subject to time and space. The Pintele Yid, the Nekuda of the deepest part of the Neshama, where the Neshama is meyuchad with the Eibishter himself, that power, the power of Etzem HaNeshama, that's the power of the Eibishter. And that transcends time and space. And therefore, a Yid becomes a balabas over time and space. So we can go back to events and occurrences or periods, dry spells in our lives, wasted opportunities, wasted landscapes in our terrain of our life where we have been traveling, that has been wasted, so much opportunity. We can go and completely fill all that lack because there's no limitation. When a Yid is Einsmit Eibishter, the Eibishter is a balabasta of the past, and that's why with the power of tshuva, a Yid can transcend it all. So the secret of tshuva is, as the Zohar says, in one moment. What is tshuva? The tshuva is aker. Aker means a shake-up, a turn, but a turn where you're turning with your entire being. There is a shaking of your essence. It gets chatreso, and you're turning to the Eibishter with your entire. But I say, Hineni, I'm here for you now. Maybe I was lost till now, but now I'm here. That shake, that ker, that's the ker of Etzem HaNefesh, and that fixes everything. So it's amazing. As it applies to Pesach, there is the avodah, what we call Tamidim Kisidram. There is the day, the constant avodah, the continuous, step by step, which is generally called avodah tzadikim, in which you're working in a very systemized level, and within a certain framework of a system where the past accomplishments you build on the past accomplishments, and slowly you put brick by brick and brick by brick, and eventually you achieve things. So you can do things. In 70, 80 years of the Avodah of Tzaddik comes one Baal Tshuva, what was his name, Elazar ben Derdaya, and the Rabbi is crying because in 1 second, because this person touches upon Etzem HaNefesh in a place much deeper than the Avodah of Tzaddik that's coming from the Koiches Giluyim, from the revealed Koiches of the Nefesh. It's coming from his essence, and he brings in the tsunami wave. And he fills all the boiros reikim. You can have this person who's making pipes, and he's schlepping water, and he's building pipes, and he has to bring the water and fill each pit. It's a ganze avodah of a lifetime. It's a work of plumbing, a whole avodah of setting up an irrigation system. Comes one person, snaps his finger, and he brings in a tsunami of a wave, and in 1 second, all the boiros are all filled. And that's the power of Pesach Sheni. But what's beautiful is Pesach itself is already a avodah of a leap. Pesach Sheni means a leap of a leap. If in the leap itself there was something lacking in the first tshuva, in the avodah of tshuva in the first, this is like the l'mayla minamu l'mayla. It's makifim b'makif. It's beyond. It's so powerful. So we can imagine and we can see why to the Rebbe, who the Rebbe is the one who's going to pick up, he's going to be machzor the Jewish people in Tshuvas, the Yechida HaKlalis of all the generations, the last Nasi. And as the Rebbe said, he's the Nasi of the last generation, and this generation becomes the first generation of the Geulah. That means the Nasi of the last generation is Nasi Dareinu, is the Nasi of the first generation. So therefore, that's Mashiach Tzidkenu. Mashiach Tzidkenu is the Yechida HaKlalis. If he's Yechida, so he's one, literally with it. So that power is the empowerment that the Rebbe gives our generation. So that's Bichlal. We can explain perhaps why to the Rebbe Pesach Sheni is such a great yontif, and why the Rebbe is constantly charging us with this Pesach Sheni energy. But I think there is something that's speaking to us in particular right now, and that is that I came to Lubavitch in 1989, Tafshin Mem Tes, and I was swept in immediately. That's when things were starting to get very hot regarding Mashiach. And the Rebbe was at from Mem Ches and onward, Mem Tes and Nun and Na. I mean, let's say it started at Mem Ches, started Basi Legani already on Tafshin Yud, but the intensity of Mashiach came to a whole new boiling point, if we can say. The pot started boiling in Mem Tes, Nun Aleph, Nun Beis. And everybody that was there, I was there, and I'm sure so many of the listenership, not everybody, but whoever maybe wasn't there, but Guv Gashmi or Neshamas were there. So we all felt, and we were all sure, based on the sikhs that were coming from the Rebbe week after week and everything that we saw, that literally, mamish, in any rega, can be any fabrengen, any time, there's going to be the fullest galus of Melech HaMashiach, and the Rebbe is going to take us out of Golos. It's going to happen. That's where we were. And we were in that space. And sometimes we were mamish at the climax, mamish over there. And we were fired up with passion, with fervor, with excitement. Of course, we were hanging on the Rebbe, but that was the Rebbe's shoulders. The Rebbe was taking us to the Geulah. Then came the crushing events, beginning with Chav Zayin Adar the second time, but real crush was in Gimel Tammuz. And after that, I think we crashed. I would say most of Lubavitch crashed. We crashed. It was very painful. Extremely painful. You're coming from such a high, and then boom, no one expected it. And that caused, I think, a deep scar for all of us. Now, I have to say, there perhaps are some neshamas of Atzilus that weren't impacted. I tilt my hat to these individuals. It says before Neshamas Gavoyas Kirashbi, there was no Churban Beis Hamikdash. That's what it says. It's Chassidus. And in front of Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, there was no destruction of Beis Hamikdash. So it's possible that there are some Neshamas that for them Gimel Tammuz never happened, and everything is the same, and the Rebbe is here Poyot Mamish B'Guv Gashmi, and they experience it and they feel it, and therefore they're marching to the Geulah in the last 26 years. Nothing happened, nothing changed. I'm very, very amazed by these neshamas. But I think the regular neshamas, the biyah, ordinary people, men, women, and children, I mean, everybody, bachnim, and teenagers, and girls, and boys, and babis, and zaydis, I think most of us had a real crush, and a very, very, to a point of a shviris hakelim. This really, really, really hurt us deeply. And I think to many of us, there's a certain feeling that it was a missed opportunity. It was a missed opportunity. Far fallen, we futch, we messed it up. The Rebbe was hoping we're going to join him. We're going to storm the heavens. We're going to bring Mashiach. Many people even felt that Chavches Nisan was kind of that fabrengen with that talk that the Rebbe gave then, was the Rebbe like throwing up his hands and saying, Chevra, I have no one to work with. That was something. I'm not saying that's the meaning of it. Now we're learning it over and we're finding a whole new meaning in that. But I'm just talking realistically. A lot of people felt that way. There was a lot of pain and a lot of, and I think a lot of people relate to it as a missed opportunity. We were so there. Had we merited, we could have done it, but now far from. And there is darkness for a long time. Now, I do want to say something parenthetically, very important. Now that we have a chance to go back to the sikhs of Nun Aleph and Nun Beis and learn them thoroughly, which someone pointed out to me 2 weeks ago, I think it was Shifra Chana Hendry, should be well. She pointed out something. I was talking to her, and she said that that in those times we didn't get a chance in Nun Aleph and Nun Beis, Nun Aleph and Beis, to really learn the sikhs and to really absorb them, because every week there was another sikh. So you didn't have time to really take it in. What is the Rebbe really saying? So we learned, and you were so busy with seeing the Rebbe and seeing him and hearing it, you didn't get a chance to internalize, to digest, to absorb, to take it in. Now we can go back to the sikhs and really, really silence our excitement and our passion, and be able to hear. That's why it's so important to actually learn it and see what is the Rebbe really saying. So to me, it's clear today's days from learning, and the Rebbe saying it. I mean, the Rebbe says it in a few places, that it's not chas v'sholem, a missed opportunity, that something was supposed to happen and it didn't happen, and verfallen, verfutscht. That's not chas v'sholem. That it is, in those years of Nun Aleph and Nun Beis, something incredible happened. What happened? The Geula was downloaded. The Rebbe says it in Parsha Shoftim. Take a look. It's an amazing sikha. The famous sikha, Parsha Shoftim Nun Aleph, where the Rebbe says that there was a Navi in the generation, and we have to be mefarsim it to the whole world, that there is a Navi, and the Surah Sagiyul is a Nevuah, and so on and so forth. The Rebbe says, and these people that are wondering, how is this going to happen? The familia, how will the family accept this? How will this person take it? How will the Bnei Bayis take it? Your people are wondering, like they're having a hard time. The Rebbe is saying that the Mashiach is so imminent, it's so here. I'm not exactly quoting the exact words, but something to this. And how will the family people, how will it be accepted? Other people, some people might look at me like I'm off the wall. The Rebbe says this would be a kasha if we're dealing with something that didn't happen yet. But the Rebbe said it happened already. As a shaynim shach geworden ba'olam, it was already drawn down in the world, similar to the idea that something was already nimshach, which means, I'm going to use today's, there was a shloishim of Reb Leibel Groner. So he used to love to say, though, this mashal, when he would teach Chassidus, I would hear him, he'd love to use the mashal of downloading. He said, when you learn Torah, you do mitzvahs, you're downloading a godly download. The Rebbe says the Geula was downloaded already. In other words, it was nimshach already. Where was it nimshach? It was nimshach into our hard drives. The Rebbe was mamshach the Geula into each and every one of us already. It was nimshach already down even into Olam Asir. It just needs to be clicked. It needs to be nizgala. It needs to be revealed. It needs to be opened up. And the Rebbe says, okay, so how do you do that? You learn about it. So you become conscious of it. So you're opening it up. You're opening it up within yourself because you're becoming more aware of it. But the Indian is here already. So chas v'sholem to think that it was a missed opportunity didn't happen. But I am dealing with, particularly today, the sense of despair, the sense of brokenness that so many of us, including myself, have experienced, and many people have not gotten over it yet. And I don't blame anybody because I've suffered from it, and to an extent I still suffer from it. The idea that I feel basically stifled and broken, that kind of we missed an opportunity. So I think here is the message where we're coming now this year. Now it's Pesach. Now we're coming to Pesach Sheni. We are now in the midst of a corona situation, a coronavirus, and in a global lockdown. And there is a very, very strong sense by everybody that ot kumt Moshe. There is a strong universal sense by Yidden, and not just in Lubavitch, B'chlal in the world. Mashiach talk reached new peaks during the corona on levels that we have never seen before. Now, I will admit, those feelings were peaked when it was coming Erev Pesach. It was coming Pesach, and we were all saying, how can it be that we're not doing Sedarim publicly? Or, usually if every family does public, they say, but for Chabad, for Shmuchim, they're not doing public Sedarim, everybody on their own. For how can it be that Bubbies and Zadis and children and this are not going to parents and everybody's isolated? So we have everything that Pesach Mitzrayim was that way. And the Pesach Geula, the Pesach La'aseh, the future redemption is also going to be that way. With all the hype and the excitement that we're sure without a shadow of a doubt that since the Yemei HaMabul, there was never a situation where all of the world shut down. How can there be that there's such another global shutdown? So we're all sitting and waiting impatiently for the Geula to come. And we can even see it in Lubavitch, because of what we've been through and because of the difficulties and also the lack of meeting of minds, which is so understandable based on what Rabbi Paltiel said earlier, that when you stand for something and when you stand for something passionately, obviously there's going to be chilukei deis. If you're just a mellow person without any opinions, without anything that you're fighting for, you have no one to fight with, because why should you fight with anybody? But if you have opinions, and if you're strong-minded, and if you believe with something, to the fact that it gets your blood boiling, like our iskashus to our Rebbe, that our Rebbe boils in us because he's just got us in the guts. The Rebbe has us in our. That's maybe too physical to say, but that too. The Rebbe has us in our kishkis. The Rebbe has us in our nefesh, ruch, neshama, chai, yechid. He touches us in our etzem. So of course we're passionate, and because of differences of opinions on that, to a point, we kind of became uncomfortable even talking about Mashiach to a certain degree. And now we're talking about Mashiach, where we're getting comfortable with it, because we sense it, we feel it, that it's Mashiach Satan. Everybody senses it's Mashiach Satan. But now, since Adurchigang Pesach, and Chodesh Nisan went by, and then we had just a few weeks ago, I was on the same, not the same people speaking, but there was also a chat organized by the same organizers. Chav Ches Nisan, we were hoping the last remnants of Nisan, and Nisan passed. It's not here. So here, when we come to the next, so here's where I want to unleash the power, not me. I want to bring to everybody's attention to unleash the power of Pesach Sheni. Pesach Sheni is coming, and the Rebbe taught us to Shtach Fallen, and there's Lag Boimer. And what's Lag Boimer? Lag Boimer is the idea that there's a Rebbe. What's Lag Boimer? Lag Boimer, it's from the Baal Shem Tov on, there is the idea, even by Polish Chassidim, actually by Polish Chassidim even more, the yard site of a Rebbe, it was like very, very intense, because the more you rely on the Rebbe, the less work the Rebbe, the less homework the Rebbe gives to Chassidim, the Yaskashus, the Rebbe has to be everything, mamish, because you don't have your own Chassidis to work with. On Lubavitch, there's always the idea that a Chassid should learn on his own. I'm not minimizing Chas v'shalom of Yaskashus, but you understand that by Polish Chassidim, so you have Rabbi Melach's yard site, right? The Melech of Lezensk and ganz Poland, everybody would go to Lezensk. Everybody would. In today's days too, people travel to Lezensk, and they travel here, and they travel to the Kivrei Tzadikim and across the world, and it's. But that's 200 years. Before that, such an iskashus to a tzaddik. That's Rashbi. That's Rashbi. You don't see it anywhere. Even Moshe Rabbeinu. What do you have? People fast on his yard site. The head hint. But that to have such a Bar Yochai and they're singing his praises, if you think about it, it's really strange. It's really strange. You know, we're serving the Eibush there, and yet we make an entire yontif surrounding the praising of a tzaddik. You go speak about Maran, and we're all singing Bar Yochai and Vamatim Koilachai, all the nigunim that praise the greatness of Reb Shimon Bar Yochai. We're saying unbelievable things about it. That's the concept of Rebbe. Of Neshama Koilelas, that every Yid, no matter thousands of years later, feels in his kashrus to Reb Shimon Bar Yochai. Why? Because he's the master of Pnimius HaTorah. Pnimius HaTorah is Pnimius HaNeshama. The more Pnimius you go, the more Neshamas are unified, the more one they are. So when you're dealing with Rebbe, and what does it say about Reb Shimon Bar Yochai? Kedei Rabbi Shimon lismoich alav. Reb Shimon is someone you can rely on. Our Rebbe is someone we can rely on. And therefore, when our Rebbe told us it's Zman Negias Mangulaszchem at the time of redemption has arrived, Chas v'sholom to think it's something that we missed. It's something that maybe, I'm not saying that had we not rallied with the Rebbe at that time with more koiches that we and done better, maybe we could have brought not only the download that happened that time, but also that the opening of the file. The opening, the hisgalus could have also happened then. That, for whatever reason, it didn't happen. So that's left now for us to do. So what is it now when it's coming Pesach Sheni, in such a year of Tafshin Pei, we have to realize Nishdakaim Farfalon. We're a generation of Nishdakaim Farfalon. And we have the koiches over the next couple of days to really activate powers that are believable. This is the year is a year of tshuva. The year is a year of transcendental energy. It's the pays is nisim. It's 8 to the power of, we're in Sphira. Sphira goes 7 weeks, and then the 8th day, the 50th day. That's where the prize is at. The prize is in Tafshin Pei. That's why we've seen incredible things this year. But I think, and this is very important to emphasize, very, very important, that and Rabbi Pape, you'll let me know, because I was told to speak a little longer because Rabbi from Moscow, Rabbi. it couldn't come on early enough. No, how did I slip my mind? In any case, so let me know if I'm okay. I don't hear you. Okay. So where I think is so important, and so Corona is not okay. Every time we feel a squeeze, every time we have such a global situation, especially that it hit us so hard, the tragedy is so painful. And I don't want to make anybody shred off my heart, so I'm not going to talk the negative. So we don't want to talk the negative. Everybody has enough of that. But we'll focus on the positive. But it's not stam that there was this event. I think it's important to realize one of the things that Rebbe did in Tafshin Nun, when the Rebbe was speaking about the uniqueness at that time in Nun Aleph and Nun Beis, about the Geula being right upon us and the Geula about to unfold, the Rebbe was makasher it so much with events that were happening in the world during that time. And the Rebbe was saying, someone actually sent me a WhatsApp. I don't know the person's name. I want to give him a public yashar koyach. I mean, I've seen it, but he reminded me. And I went today and I looked it up. Parshas Toldos, Tafshin Nun, look the Sikha, it's a Mugadig Sikha, the last part of the Sikha, amazing words. The Rebbe there is talking about, like, people are asking, where do you see, if we're talking that Mashiach is about to come, where do we see the changes in the world that are supposed to accompany? And the Rebbe comes in mamish like a father to a child, explaining of Kleingeld, that there's major revolutions that are happening in the world. And these major revolutions are taking place without bloodshed. It's interesting, the Rebbe mentions Russia, the Rebbe mentions China, and the Rebbe mentions India. And then the Rebbe mentions islands and other places. So the Rebbe is basically saying, and not basically, he's describing that massive changes happening amongst the nations, especially when they're happening in an unusual way. We should realize that this is all showing us and indicating that the world is preparing itself for the Giyul. I think that, what the idea of Nishtakan for Fallen is so apropos this year, because the same opportunities that were going on in that chunk of time, Nun Aleph, the same opportunities that were happening then over those few years, that things were like heating up in the world, happened in the last 2-3 years now as well. To think about how suddenly, since the days of Bill Clinton, there was a resistance, even though they already passed the rule in Congress that the embassy has to be in Yerushalayim, there was such resistance. The Kalippa would not allow that to happen. The nations would not allow that to happen. They kept on pushing it off. And even the United States, which is a Malchus Shel Chesed, and the Rebbe said how much he owes the United States, yet resistance and resistance and resistance. Why so much resistance? And the last 2 years, boom, that happened. And if we also think, I'm just going to be done in 3 minutes, 2 minutes, and then we find that the Soina Yisrael, think about what the enemies, the powers that used to be endangering Eretz Yisrael and Shleimus Haaretz and so on and so forth. Take a look what happened. All Soina Yisrael have withered. Mamish, and in the last year, they took out the Soleimani guy. And this was a huge Tzeidet HaYehudim, the brain behind Iranian aggression. And let's think about what's going on right now. Just this week, Iran is packing its bags and getting out of Syria. That's unbelievable. Signing and it's amazing. And took a look just last week, how Saudi Arabia was poking fun of the Palestinians, saying there's no Palestinian people, right? I mean, you've seen the changes. Mamish conversion of nations. The world kehrt sich über, es dreht sich über der ganze Welt. The European Union, which is also such a threat to Eretz Yisrael, is falling apart. Everything that's menagit to Yidden and to holiness, quietly, while all this pararam trask is going on in the world, with Corona, a bunch of loose screws are mamish falling completely, and the thing is falling apart. And what is this all an indication? And to top it all off, after all these things happen, comes a corona situation that basically shuts down the entire world. It's so clear that we're living mamish at the threshold of redemption. All it needs is one good push, one b'shayt l'chada b'riga chada now. What can we do? All of us together? Let me suggest three things. Number one, achdus. Achdus ben Chassidim. Rabbi Peltiel spoke about it so well. Not to make shalom and Lubavitch. Leave that to the big machers. Make shalom between you and your neighbor. Each and every one of us to reach out, to say hello to people you didn't talk to for a long time. This is the way we work our achdus in the details. Number two, learning in Yana Geula Mashiach that we all have to take on now in a very serious way, because by learning it, we enter into that space and we make it real to ourselves and into the world around us. And number three, the Rebbe says, to get ready to be Makabel Pnei Moshiach Tzedkenu. And Kabbalas Pnei Moshiach Tzedkenu is something that is left to us to do the last avodah, and it actually means B'poyo Mamish to be Makabel, the Malchus of Melech HaMoshiach. A good place to get information on that is on the woman's. There is it's not a woman's thing. It's a website called welcomemashiach.org. Simply being Makabel Pnei Moshiach gives koyach to Moshiach Tzedkenu to bring about the end of the Golus. May the Eibush to help. We should be able to do the Gemara of it, get it done. And chas v'sholom, you don't get disparaged if it doesn't happen Pesach Sheni, it doesn't happen Lag BaOmer. It's happening. It's happening. We all have the koyches to do it. But let's take that. Let's get deep in ourselves. Get the power. Realize that we're living mamish ot, and let's do it. L'chaim ul bracha, l'chaim in Mashiach.